All right, hey everyone, good Thursday evening to you. It's 21 News Chief Meteorologist Eric Wilhelm here, weather for Weather Geeks time. It's the Valley's craziest, most detailed weather forecast video. If you happen to watch our newscast at 6 o'clock, live TV sometimes can be a challenge, technically speaking. We took a big power hit downtown earlier today, and it kind of screwed up some things at the station, and we couldn't get any video to play, so the newscast was delayed by a few minutes, and then we had a whole bunch of weather in the newscast because thankfully everything in the weather department was working just fine. So lesson, as always, in live TV is be ready to go, because they told me I needed to do a whole bunch of weather. And so if there's one thing I can get on TV and talk about without too much of a problem most days, it is the weather. And today's weather, pretty good for the most part, although we had some interesting stuff late in the afternoon. We're going to show you a time-lapse this evening from our Youngstown camera starting before daybreak, and kind of a chaotic sky at times today. Sometimes it was pretty clear. Sometimes we had a pretty thick deck of cumulus clouds that built up, and eventually these started to get tall enough in the sky that some of us had a shower and even a heavy thunderstorm towards the end of the afternoon. Before we get much further, I wanted to draw your attention to this. Occasionally in recent months, you may have seen a strange sight in the sky, kind of a chain of lights moving in the sky. It's not the International Space Station, which is just one little point of light. What you, if you've seen this, are seeing is actually what's called the StarLink chain of satellites. These satellites were put into orbit by the SpaceX company. Actually, they're going to launch a whole bunch more. They're going to add to their fleet this weekend. And the purpose of these satellites is to provide broadband internet access to, especially in areas that don't have great internet access right now, mostly rural areas. Supposedly this is going to become a thing later this year and into next year, but we've got a good pass of these satellites coming up this evening. Hopefully the clouds get out of the way in time. At 10:37 this evening, starting in the northwest sky, and then 5 minutes later kind of disappearing in the east sky, you'll see this chain of satellites moving across the sky, reaching a maximum elevation above the horizon of about 40 degrees. So not straight overhead, but kind of between straight overhead and ground level. So be sure and check that out. I'll send out a reminder on social media later on this evening. All right, we had a couple of pretty good thunderstorms in Columbiana County earlier on this evening. Actually, I'll take a second and kind of zoom in on where these were. Let's not do that. Let's move this back over here. And actually, I'm going to zoom in on our local area. There we go. And these kind of bubbled up near the southeastern corner of the county and then really blew up and provided a pretty good lightning show for Lisbon, Hanoverton, New Garden, Guilford Lake, heading over towards New Franklin, and then they started to dissipate somewhat once they moved over into Stark County. And as of this recording this evening, just after 7:20 p.m., I had a couple of still random quick downpours here and there, but very random. And a lot of us are dry as of this recording. This is all circulating around that upper low I've been talking about all week. It's why everything's kind of moving in a weird direction. You think of our weather usually as moving from west to east, right? Well, everything's moving from east to west this evening because of the counterclockwise movement around low pressure, which is centered just off to our south. And another way to check out that upper low is always the water vapor imagery, which is really cool to show these kind of features. This a very distinct feature will still be on the weather map for another day or so, and then we'll finally get the boot out to sea by this weekend. There's plenty of warm, if not hot air across the middle of the country this evening. Certainly hotter than it is here. We're in the upper 70s in most spots this evening as of, again, 7:22. But lots of 90s and upper 80s out across the middle of the nation, and some of this hot air is going to start to come east as we head towards the weekend. All right, it's Thursday, and so at this time of the year we get an update on the Drought Index from NOAA. And it's kind of interesting to look at where we are now nationwide compared to last year at this time. Last year at this time, there was very little drought. Pacific Northwest was pretty dry. Elsewhere, not a whole lot of widespread issues. The drought is much more significant today compared to a year ago in the Intermountain West, out towards Northern California, Oregon, and it's even getting abnormally dry in parts of New England, parts of the Ohio and Mississippi valleys. And even though we're not technically in the abnormally dry category just yet here locally, it's getting pretty dry. We've only had 0.77 inches worth of rain at the airport so far this month. All right, as we go through the night tonight, any leftover showers fade away quickly. Now, Friday's going to play out in a similar fashion to today, although I kind of suspect more places will see a popcorn pop-up randomly placed shower or thunderstorm tomorrow when compared to today. But not everyone's going to see one. There's really no telling where these things will decide to go. Saturday, probably fewer showers and storms in the afternoon, but I can't rule out a quick passing downpour in some spots. Same thing on Sunday. Hot, humid air mass. Not much of a trigger, but yeah, could there be a stray shower or storm? Yeah, that's going to be a possibility. Dew points, it's not as dry, the air mass, as it was a few days ago. But it's not as humid as it was earlier last week, and it's not as humid now as it will be later this weekend and into early next week. Those dew points will be mostly upper 50s to around 60 at times, even mixing down into the mid 50s at times over the next couple of days. By the end of the weekend and into early next week, boy, it's going to be a pretty steamy air mass. All right, when we talk about the seasons, meteorologically speaking, we've been in summer for a few weeks, but from an astronomical perspective, summer officially begins Saturday evening. It's the summer solstice, the point in which the sun's most direct rays are over the northern hemisphere, and then, slowly but surely, the sun starts getting a little farther south in the sky. The days start getting a little bit shorter, and Sunday will be 1 second shorter, as far as the daylight goes, than Saturday. But Saturday, longest day of the year, 5:50 a.m. for the sunrise, 8:58 p.m. for the sunset. By the time we get to the fall equinox in September, sunrise will be at 7:10, the sunset at 7:18. In the longer range, not a lot of heat, high heat anyway, in the tail end of June. I talked about this some last evening. It'll be warm. Don't see a lot of cool days, but I don't see a lot of 90s either in the longer range. And while it will be fairly active in terms of precipitation next week, I don't see many signs of any sort of a wet summer pattern taking shape for a prolonged period of time anytime real soon. Maybe tomorrow evening we'll show you some of the longer range modeling here on Weather for Weather Geeks. In the meantime, thanks for watching this Thursday evening edition, and I will see you back here on Friday.